My name is Marcin Skrzypek and I work at the Grodzka Gate NN Theatre Center in Lublin, where I deal with the so-called culture of space. This is where I came up with the idea of the game of space. The game of space is a 3D landscape simulator. It helps people to feel and understand what the landscape is and how it is created. It is a multi-purpose tool based on dialogue without words, so I call it also landscape chess or landscape laboratory. It's still in the prototype phase, so I'd like to cooperate with someone who could help test, develop and apply this tool. It all started in my high school when by chance I came across another game of Abstraction, invented by the Lublin-based artist Roman Pukar. It's also a kind of a game, but an artistic psychological one, where two people sitting opposite each other take turns painting any sign on a sheet of paper. Each sign refers to the previous one in some sense. There are 4 basic such references: repetition, modification, negation or ignoring. In the course of such a joint painting, the image becomes a space of dialogue for the players, a projection of their interrelations, and an opportunity to create new ones. When I began to take an interest in public space, I noticed that it too is a network of such relations and a field of dialogue. It is not an empty space housing various objects, but more precisely, it's a network of relations between them, which is a projection of the relations between people who leave their traces in public space. So creating public space is very reminiscent of the game of Abstraction, only that instead of brush marks on paper, people place various physical objects in their environment, but in a similar way, that is referring to what has been done earlier, by way of repetition, modification, negation or ignoring. In this way, public space becomes a medium for social relations. In 2006, many years after encountering the game of Abstraction, I planned a workshop for teachers about reading the landscape, which was to take place one winter afternoon. I wanted to show them a presentation with basic landscape knowledge, but what else we could do other than look at pictures? A walk would have been useful, but it was dark and cold outside. And that's when I came up with the idea of adapting the Abstraction game to teach about space by replacing color patches with blocks imitating elements of landscape. Using them, players can build a model of a community center with its landscape surroundings. A community center is a useful object for such a game because it's a public place. So the space around it automatically becomes a shared space, so you don't have to explain that. This video made by Roman Pukar shows the first version of the game and how the second version was made by students of Lublin University of Technology under the direction of Hubert Tramer. Now I'm cooperating with the Department of Physics at Marie Curie Skłodowska University to produce more versions in 3D print. The game of space is capable of recreating real landscape relationships in the scale of close environment, together with nearby views shown on a board frame, such as a river, a street, a park or a supermarket. The game of space is a non-confrontational game, that is, it's about cooperation rather than competition. The rules are very simple. Players in pairs get sets of blocks representing buildings, small architecture and greenery. They put them in turns on the board, like in a chess game, but they put them wherever they want, and the board serves as a building site with its neighboring spatial context. The game is played without communicating in words. For the language of communication, players use rules of making people-friendly environment according to the knowledge they already have, or which they acquire before the game, for example, from a special presentation. The game ends when one player decides not to make another move or when they run out of blocks. Players can be prepared for the game not only by a presentation of pictures, but by any educational activity about public space and landscape, such as a walk in a park or a photo workshops. The game is followed by a discussion about its results, and also here various modifications are possible, awarding prizes, making corrections, running another game, depending on what final educational result we want to achieve. Thanks to different colors of the blocks, the final layout on the board is the record of the dialogue between players. We can read from it if the partners worked together or each built alone. The layouts represent different compositions, for example axial, central, asymmetrical, dispersed or chaotic. Those layouts also reflect different local patterns of public space. For example, in Lviv, in Ukraine, players concentrated on constructing large buildings, paying little attention to surroundings, while in Tbilisi, in Georgia, players started with putting a tree in the middle because it's hot there and many courtyards have a tree in the middle. Summing up, the game can be used for various purposes. To illustrate the principles of spatial planning with respect to tradition and human needs. To consolidate knowledge of landscape, architecture and public space solutions. To integrate strangers or opponents before discussions or social consultations by focusing them on the common values and social interest. For scientific research on the perception of public space. There are also various possibilities to develop the game of space, such as making up a smaller scale version of the game to create urban models, designing and producing better quality game kits as a training or educational product, developing precise scoring rules, as in popular board games like Carcassonne, to teach players rules of landscape creation in a competitive way. I invite you to try it and to cooperate on that with me.